Okay, so today I watched a podcast on Diary of a CEO, and they were talking about something called vicious versus virtuous friction. And I realized this is something that I already do with what I do for my business in consulting. Basically, I build workflows for enterprise businesses and I help them streamline everything. I just don't have a fancy term for it, and I realized what they were talking about in this episode was vicious versus virtuous friction. So, what that meant by that is vicious is more like things like filling out an Excel spreadsheet manually, right? Filling out a form manually that probably already has been filled in by somebody else, so double handling, like all of the admin related stuff that most businesses probably already do if they don't have automations or systems involved. Some people are pushing that to AI, but with what I do, I feel like we're not sort of ready yet to move those tasks to AI. It's actually better to form a rigid system with automations instead. Leave AI to more creative stuff. In my opinion, that's what it is. Until we get to AGI, that's a different story. And then quantum computing, that's another story in itself. But what I wanted to go through today was to give more of a bit of a demo to what's actually possible in terms of, the vicious versus virtuous. Hard to say. Virtuous, on the other hand, is things that you should be doing, like vision work, like actually innovative work. Like if we can automate most of the processes on the vicious side, right, then we leave more room for the virtuous side. And that actually is the bigger picture stuff, right? The way that I saw it since yesterday was always about automating the tedious work that could be automated. So things that have a pattern to the work where it's like, a certain amount of clicks or copying this and pasting that there, or things that, technically and logically could be done automatically via software, right? It's just to know how to do it. That's the whole reason why people don't do it. That's what I generally provide for businesses. So I create systems where essentially whatever an admin staff would do, or like just, again, like tedious things that you would do day in, day out, that technically in your mind, if you think, that could be automated. Well, I don't even know if most people think that. For me, I do, right? So just typical things like invoicing, say, for example, or like quoting jobs and all that jazz, like it all has some form of repetition, and it has, all of the opportunity to automate. So let's go through screen share. So typically, what I did before was I'd go through Upwork and find some examples of some job scopes, and then I'll map out some samples. But today, I wanted to talk more about this. I am trying to launch like an academy where I teach other people to do what I do, because I've been quite fortunate to be able to actually leave Australia, still retain my business, live in Italy and, still make money in Australia and also have clients in America. Technically, I'm able to have global clients whilst working literally downstairs here in my home. And making, six figures is quite achievable. I literally spent, I think, an average of 8 hours a week last year, and I cracked six figures, second time round. This year, I'm looking to, scale up. Last year was a bit cruisy. This year, I want to do a little bit more, probably crack $500,000. And this is all solo, by the way. I used to have staff, tried to scale that way, and either I'm a crap manager or I'm a perfectionist in what I do, or I don't know, something happened. But anyways, I decided to just fire everyone and just AI accelerate all of my tasks, all of my jobs. And it worked out pretty well. Do I want to hire again? Absolutely. When? More so when the academy rolls out, I think that's where I'll need genuine help, where I won't be so nitpicky. It'll be more about educating people on how to do what I do, not necessarily let's hire and train people to be like me. Now, I know stuff that I'm going to say, there's some managers out there, it's like, oh, you can do this, and that. I know there's a solution. I just haven't got to it yet. Anyways, this is my browser. I'm using Arc for people that are interested. We're looking at Upwork now. So what I want to find here are some examples of some job scopes that present some vicious tasks, right? Obviously, the virtuous tasks are pretty easy to understand. Let's actually find some vicious related tasks. So platforms I use mostly now these days is primarily like Monday and Zapier, or actually primarily Zapier. Monday's sort of phasing out for me because I've picked up Lovable recently, and I've seen some other stuff like Replit and all that jazz. I swear every 3 months is like a revolution, and my main bread and butter just changes. But in saying that, let's go find something. So we got Get Response. Wow, I haven't heard that in a while. Pipedrive, ClickUp, Remote Team Productivity Expert. This might be one. Let's have a look. Let me increase the font size so we're good for the mobile viewers. We are a venture studio building remote SaaS products. Okay, AI. I know we have an AI boom right now, but I'm not necessarily on board just yet. There's so much hallucination involved unless they're giving you models that are specifically trained with a repository. Okay, but most high level, like enterprise businesses that I work with, there's so much legal behind it, and you have to ensure that things are done to the T. So in my world, I don't necessarily push it yet. I push mostly Zapier and automations because I know that I can build it with, their SOPs and then build a system that's, properly made for them. Monday Solutions Architect. Okay, let's have a look at this one. Seeking an experienced Monday Solutions Architect, process automation consultant to help design and build a new event project management workflow within Monday. Okay, this is right down my alley. This engagement will focus on creating a scalable process that supports event requests from intake through execution and completion. We are looking for someone who can ask thoughtful questions, recommend the best practices, and build an effective solution using Monday.com workflows, automations, dashboards, and AI capabilities. Now, this is essentially who I am, and this is essentially the skill that I want to pass on to other people within my academy so they can take on jobs like this. Now, it's already evident that, they do want someone to streamline their stuff. So let's look into it a little bit further. So what you'll do, design an event project management workflow, including request intake. So generally, the stuff that I teach is project management, but also workflows. So it doesn't necessarily stay within project management. It can stem over to like marketing, to sales, to ops, even finance. Like it's all over the joint. Like you have the core skill of designing and developing workflows, and then that sort of just applies to everything. I think within the industry, and I guess why clients, get into bed with me, so to speak, is that I have the addition of, having a really, really broad business acumen. I think that's the right word. Experience with a lot of businesses, right? Like high level ops. I understand how big businesses work, how companies work. My background has been literally just been mingling with CEOs, not mingling, networking, so to speak. But not only that, on an entrepreneurial level, getting into their training, getting into their education, understanding, what every industry needs. And yes, they do. Like every industry is different. And, further into that, you have your niches and all that. But generally from the surface, you typically have the same problems. The workflows are somewhat similar, right? It's just a matter of how complex complexities in different areas, right? So say, for example, like a law firm will have more complexities on, text-based processing, whereas something like a construction company would have more complexities on, job details, right? Because they have so many moving different parts, right? Whereas, say, for example, like I have a HVAC client, they've got complexities over staff management, right? It's more deep into that because they're dispatching like 10, 20, 30 teams of 2 or 3 per day, right? Within the 9 to 5 or 7 to 6 or whatever it is for them. But it's all generally the same, sort of. But, once you see 5 different industries, you'll start to see how things correlate and how things blend and how you can actually have transferable skills, right? Obviously, this is unique to the role that I have, right? I don't think everyone's like this. Maybe actors can vouch that do perform in different roles. That's the best thing I can think of. But in saying that, like once you're in an ops role and you understand that you've been through a few industries, you do see there is a relevance. Again, the difference is the complexities of where each business requires more effort, right? Anyways, I'm not going to get too much into that. Let's continue. So, what do these guys need? I know we went on a little bit of a whatchamacallit, a derailing there. So include request intake, build templates and boards. I just want to identify some of the vicious stuff, right? Use AI-enabled workflows at Monday. I hate that. Even though I work with Monday. Recommend process improvements and workflow best practices. That's the consulting side. So a part of the academy is that this is the perfect client for a student in the academy, right? Because anyone can learn Monday, anyone can learn Zapier, anyone can learn automations. Like, I think the point of difference again is like me teaching students how to operate like operations managers, operate like founders, operate like CEOs, right? Having the understanding of how a business works and then being able to communicate workflow best practices, right? Obviously, like I would encourage each student to target their own niche because you're more comfortable with that. It's like something that you've always been doing. To say, for example, for me, I started out in media, so I was doing a lot of photography and videography. So initially, yes, it would be ideal to target media companies because I will know the lingo and I will know the workflows, and with this automation sort of skill set that I have, I can build probably the best system for them because I know everything inside out, right? So there's like relatable conversations there. But now I'm at a point where you can throw them in any industry. It's absolutely fine. As long as I work with the right person who has all the knowledge, then I can literally connect with them to build the systems that they're looking for. So transforming their vision into real practical systems, right? So this is the kicker for every single client. If you're watching as a future student or you're watching as a potential person who wants to, get some consulting work done with me, this is the kicker for every client, right? This is what separates you, essentially, right? If they're looking for someone to come in and help them improve their processes, yes, they will have pain points and problems that they need to be solved, right? But at the same time, they're looking for someone to actually help them, go even further. It's all well and great if you land the gig and you don't have this sort of nailed down, you'll probably get the job and it's done, right? If you want a long-lasting relationship, if you're into retainers and all that, then this is what you need, because essentially this is what generates more work. I have 2 ways that I like to service my clients. One is asynchronous and one is live. So asynchronous is your traditional setup where, you have your meeting, you come through, you scope it out, and then you pretty much, develop a live to-do list. And then that's essentially the sales process in itself. If they accept that, great, you've already got stuff to do. The other side is live work, which I prefer these days because I'm more time conscious, where we literally meet up, we scope on the fly, we build things on the fly, and everything gets done within the meeting. Let's say we do a 4-hour block. As soon as that meeting's done, boom, you walk away, no homework, and they walk away with updates, which is great. But you need this to continually build that to-do list, right? For people who are looking to become business owners and do this stuff, this is literally the sales process. For the people on the other side who are buying, be wary of this, because obviously, it's going to drag up expenditure, but you can be smart about it because you can pick and choose what you want first. So out of the whole to-do list, you can choose to prioritize which ones you want, and if it's first time working with someone, then, pick the pain points. If you're happy with, what they're charging, then see how they go with the biggest pain points, and immediately you will know if they're good or not, right? It shouldn't take too long to solve. I mean, we're in a sort of era where everything's AI accelerated. So yeah, things shouldn't necessarily take too long. Obviously, if you're an enterprise business looking at a brand new freelancer, yeah, okay, that's not going to blend well because they can talk the talk, but can they walk the walk, right? So obviously, there's your normal hiring processes that you have to do. But yeah, once you find someone confident, you just got to bite the bullet and see if they can perform. But I find that, you, as someone looking for a consultant or a developer to do this, you can easily detect the confidence, right? You can easily, especially if they can show you, sort of some demos and all that stuff. Hard industry to actually showcase work because of NDAs. But hey, sometimes you can get a sneaky one. But yeah. Demos, actually, I've been starting to do that now. So just giving them an upfront demo live, which is just insane. But you can do that these days. Just depends on what you're after. Anyways, we are getting off the rails again. Test and refine the solution with key stakeholders, document the final workflow, and create a brief user training video for future use. What we're looking for: advanced Monday experience, building scalable operational workflows from scratch. Well, this is actually, maybe I should pick up this client. Excellent communication skills and a proactive solutions-oriented mindset. Ability to work some USA EST hours, yeah, that's fine. For team collaboration and checkpoints, fluent English communication skills, written and verbal. Part-time engagement, this is where I run away. Approximately less than 20 hours a week, but for some students it could be great. Estimated duration 3 to 4 weeks, fully remote, starting in August. Please apply. Okay, it was a great listing to help me talk about the stuff that I like to talk about. However, it's a little bit vague for me to actually look for the vicious related tasks, right? So because they want to work things from scratch, I don't think they even know what they want. They definitely do have a system. The next approach, if we were to apply for this, would be to, deep dive into the systems, show what's going on and all that jazz. But because they don't have a literal scope here, let's skip this and let's go back and find another one. So let's see which one's going to be the bingo. Monday setup for non-profit. Let's have a quick glance at this. Nope, too vague. Configure CRM, go high level CRM. Let's have a look. 12 to 35, never. I started with Upwork, by the way, and it did land me some pretty sweet clients, but they were like a needle in a haystack with the prices that I wanted to charge. I think, this is globally available talent, so obviously you get a high range of hourly rates. Asana training and evaluation specialist, another event management company. Providing comprehensive training sessions and conducting thorough analysis of our Asana processes to identify areas. Same thing as the other one. See specific areas in attachment. Oh, interessante. Let's see. I don't have the Microsoft. Hang on a sec. Let's not get into that. I've just did a fresh format, so I don't want to get into that just now. Let's find some more. We might have to, but hey, let's see if I can find one. Well, Notion, create dashboards and Google Sheets for operators and leadership, create creative tracking systems for testing databases, organize competitor and intelligent. Okay, so here's some here, right? So let's think vicious, right? This one mostly stuck out to me. So create dashboards and Google Sheets for operators and leadership. So in a vicious environment, I don't know why they use that word, but anyways, we're sticking with it. It would be literally updating Google Sheets, which will then propagate to a dashboard, and then that will be shown in meetings or on a TV somewhere in the office, blah, 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 right? And the idea here would be to automatically populate that. So say, for example, in Zapier. So Zapier is the middleware. It's the middleman between applications. So I'm not going to create a workflow. I mean, you can see the previous videos that I've done. It'll literally show you demos where I actually go through the scope and build everything out. It's quite tedious, but hey, it is what it is. But the trigger point would be, say, for example, where the data comes from. So if we look back here, Google Sheets for operators and leadership. So say, for example, we're measuring, let's say, sales, right? Sales of products, like if you're in e-com or whatever, right? Let's say a trigger point will come from something like Shopify. And then Shopify will then say, hey, there's a sale. And then the second one would be something like Sheets, Google Sheets. So something like that. I'm not going to configure, but let's just map it out, right? Something like Shopify. And then in Shopify, hopefully you guys can see this on mobile. Should be watching on desktop anyway. But anyways, new order, right? Triggers when a new order is created with non-item support. New paid order, yeah, that'll probably be the better one. Even new refund, right? There's all these different trigger points where, this can affect the dashboard. And then say, for example, if the dashboard is based off Google Sheets, in Google Sheets, you would create multiple spreadsheet rows, create spreadsheet column, create spreadsheet row, create spreadsheet row at the top. There's different ways you can approach this, right? Depends how your spreadsheet is designed. But let's say, for example, if you're just adding in another row on a specific worksheet, and that is designed nicely to connect to your dashboard, that would be an example of how we could automate this process, right? And how we can get rid of that tedious workflow. So like with most businesses that do not have automations, it would literally be ping on their mobile, hey, you've got a new order, or an email comes into the admin inbox, hey, a new order's been made. And then it's like, okay, they gotta look at that email or look at that notification and then come into Google Sheets and literally punch it in, and then that will update the dashboard, which is great. In the 90s, it was great. Cool beans. But we're in 2026 now. And automations, literally, I've been in this probably over 10 years now. Something like that. I'm getting old. But that would be an example of a vicious friction. I think that's what it's called. Literally learned it yesterday. And to get rid of that will be huge, especially if you're doing high volume. So you can imagine if you're doing 100, 200, 300, 5,000, this is the e-com world, right? Sales per day, and you want an up-to-date dashboard, like there are many options, right? You either have full-time admin staff update this as you go if the dashboard metrics are important to you, or you can hire someone overseas for a cheaper rate and they could do that for you, or literally you can pay cents literal sense to run Zapier, build this automation, and it'll get done instantly. Like literally from the order ping, like say for example, we're running off page trigger, to actually updating Google Sheets and it propagating to your dashboard, like within a minute max, right? If it's a simple build, yeah, within a minute. What it will cost you? Probably 5 cents or less. I don't know. Don't quote me on that, but it is cheap, right? It's cheaper than using, someone with a wage to actually do it, right? And it's accurate too. So that's the other thing. There's no need to double check. Like once the system is done and built correctly, then there's no need to look back. It's done, right? And it's done forever. You don't need to fire this person, right? Because of misconduct. No, it's just once it's built, it's done. As long as the process doesn't change or update, then you're good, right? So as long as this Shopify doesn't change, right? It's always paid orders and it's always the same Google Sheet and you still have your G Suite subscription and you've paid it. That's fine. That's all good, right? It'll only error out if something goes wrong within this chain, right? Now that's grossly simplified, but that's an example of Vicious, right? Let's try to find maybe one or two more and then we'll cap the video. I think hopefully I've explained it enough. I know it's all sort of still vague-ish, but like what I realized yesterday, I launched the Academy in July, ran the initial ad campaign, and even though I'm getting a whole bunch of interest, like a fuck ton of clicks, we're not converting over any, and I think it's just mainly, I don't know, it could be a few things, right? But just for transparency, let's pop in. So let's see. So for the Academy, it's just these four here. So these four here, you can see that my CPCs are pretty good. No, one's fucking crazy. That's the consulting side. I'm new to marketing, by the way. I understand what it does. I know a lot of people are really, really good at it, but I am literally a newbie. So I needed to do landing page views, and I wanted to promote the Academy. I literally built out the first module. The first module is actually free. The first program, the first module's free. 88 links literally got 0. I got all this traffic though, so there definitely is some interest, and me making this little YouTube clip is, I guess, me pivoting my strategy. I feel like I need to educate people more on what I do so that they can understand what the heck is going on and why they've clicked. So, and saying that, let's just briefly talk about 2 or 3 more. Creative tracking systems and testing databases. I mean, that's the system in itself. Organized competitive research and intelligence. There's another one, right? Another tedious process, right? This one's a little bit tricky though, because it could be a mixture of like web scraping, which probably is it. But when you web scrape, different websites and all that stuff, it comes in all these different formats of data compiled in all these different ways, so one website's going to differ to another. So when you web scrape one and you web scrape another one, it comes in 2 different sort of like formats, right? So this requires, something in between to pass the data to make it standardized, right? Again, can be done. This one's a little bit more complex, but essentially it's like, imagine you have 10 different sources of information, 10 different websites that you're scraping from competitors, right? They've all got different layouts, they've all got different, code, they've all got different everything. So the idea would be to scrape them, whatever the data point is, and then put them into a processor in Zapier. So let's say, like instead of Shopify here, it would be, I would say maybe a time-based thing, right? So you'll have a timer kick off and then that'll start this automation, let's say daily, right? So daily at 9 o'clock. So the trigger will be something like that, which I think you can do in Zapier, if I'm not wrong. There is something I remember. Inbuilt schedule here. So it's like every day, time of day, 12, blah, 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 right? It'll run this trigger. So that's a time-based trigger. And then from there, you would, whatever, right? Your web scraping setup, whatever it is, whether you're running code and you're targeting 10 different websites, it's fine. Let's just imagine that. It pulls the data from wherever your web scraping is, right? Even if it's a manual process, you're dumping it into somewhere. That's fine. Like that process is another automation in itself. Doesn't matter. Like again, this is complex, right? So let's say we've figured out the web scraping portion here, and that's the data here. From there, then you would then put it into like a code step, or you will put it into an AI step. So the code step, you can program in like regex, or you can program in something to actually look for specific keywords and rank them from all the 10 different sources to output. So say, for example, let's say prices, right? Let's say you're in real estate for videographers. You're looking for prices on drones. You're looking prices for, day rates, like all of your different packages, right, so to speak. You would put it through here to actually look for, okay, what are their drone rates? What are their day rates? What are their this rates? What are their that rates, right? And then it'll look through 10 different websites and then put it through here to get it processed and then spit it out, right, in a standardized format. And then from here, it would go to whatever, like let's just say like it goes to Sheets, and again, it goes to a dashboard, right? Or an email report, right? Here's daily email report, competitor analysis, yada, yada, yada. Not a fan of competitive analysis, but hey, if you want it to get done, that's the way you could do it, right? Like I think the most important part is the web scraping. So you can do a code-based web scrape, or you can do a manual web scrape, whatever it is, yeah, again, this should be another great example of a vicious process, right? Again, you could have admin staff, have a crack at this and spend, if you're doing 10 different websites, they'll probably spend half a day, to grab it all, then organize it, then generate the report and blah, 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 and it's like, pat on the back, you did a great job. Where all of this can literally be done, probably 2, 3, max 4, 5 minutes. Literally, like that's the world that I live in now. Like the positioning that I have for my consulting business is that I target companies that obviously have great revenue, typically in an enterprise setting. I've been doing it for a few years now. But also understand what tech is, but they're not necessarily savvy enough to create it themselves. So sort of like imagine your construction workers on site with iPhones in their pockets, right? They're the most, I wouldn't say simple, but like they're not technically savvy. But what do they have in their pockets? Like an amazing camera, literal a computer that has an automation system inside it that has such incredible software, the whole iOS environment. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that. You get the idea, right? It's like people who aren't in tech but know how to use it, right? Like they wouldn't know all the coding behind what happens when they download a new app, say for example, right? What goes on behind there. But they will know how to use it because the UI UX is designed to be easy to understand, Anyways, we're not going to dive into this. I hope you get the idea. If you don't, ask me, drop a comment. Create SOPs and internal documentation. I've always wanted to create a system that automatically creates SOPs. I think this is something we can push to AI. If you have a heavily trained AI, they can always update this. why I despise this so much is because in my world, the workflows always update. So SOPs literally update every day. I don't have time to sit around and update things that change. If there's scope creep or we have another meeting where we request a new feature, this requires an SOP update. I literally could do SOP updates every single day, you know, if it was demanded, if it was that much of a high priority. Because things change for me every day. It doesn't matter which client I'm working with, shit changes, right? So, and saying that, I'm just going to humor myself. What if I were to create something like this? It would literally be a mixture of data repository. It's like a glossary of all the things that are in the SOP that's unique to the industry. So we get all the technical terms out of the way. We would have a baseline template. So whatever's already existing, we need that as a baseline version 1.0. And then I would definitely try adding in something like Claude or GPT, and then creating like a front end where I can do voice-based updates mixed with like attached documents and all that jazz. So make my own front end where I can communicate with this front end to say, hey, I need an update in so-and-so section. Here's the new update. This is what it was before. Send it off. Then it'll do like a verification validation process where it's like checking where, you know, which clause in the SOP or which number in the SOP are we talking about, and then what needs to be updated, blah, blah, blah. Look at that, send back an approval, get the person who's updating to approve it. If it's all good, approve. If not, manual update. Like that, bang, done. So it creates essentially a smart SOP system. I'm getting some ideas here. A smart SOP system where it's dynamic, and the user input is basically, this crazy front end. Man, I'm getting ideas here. Anyways, I could literally sell that. Anyways, this is the world of me. Did we do 2 more? Yeah, we did. That's 2 more. That's it for today. I mean, I could sit here for fucking hours and just talk about this and the world that I'm in. It's such a broad and vast environment in terms of what we can do. Like the fact that I can work with any industry. Essentially, my strategy was just to target, you know, the highest revenue raising industries. And I've landed in legal, I've landed in construction, I've landed with cranes, HVAC specifically. I've started in DIS, which is an Australian thing for disability support. So healthcare industry, you know, pretty much, yeah. I mean, I started with like media, but obviously media isn't the best place in Australia in terms of like how much the industry is actually producing. So I've just followed my nose, followed where the money is, and here I am now. So yeah, that's it for today. A little bit of a different thing today. As you can see here, I'm just downstairs in my house. If you are a student, please hit me up, academy.5mconsulting.com.au. If you're looking to potentially work with me, look, let's have a chit chat and see what we can come up with for a good fit. Fantastic. If I've got time these days, because I'm going to get pretty flat out, I think, in the next month onwards. Yeah, hope you learned something today. Hope you like what I've got to say. I would like to publish more of this stuff. Just simple stuff, talking head stuff. Just come in, learn, listen, maybe even sleep to this stuff, whatever you want. And yeah, we'll go from there. Thank you. Ciao.